Imagine, if you will, a stage illuminated not by spotlights alone, but by two symbols of rock mastery. On one side gleams the iconic Gibson, wielded by Joe Perry, the groove blues rock maestro whose riffs have defined generations. On the other, the unmistakable Sunburst, Les Paul, cradled by the man in the top hat, Slash, a legend whose silhouette alone is enough to send waves of anticipation through any crowd. Here, it isn't about bands squaring off, but about two living forces of guitar, each representing an era, a style, and an attitude that has shaped the course of rock and roll. What happens when Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses meet, not as rivals, but as elemental powers within the world of the electric guitar? To understand this clash of titans, we first need to journey back to the 1970s, where Joe Perry and Aerosmith were busy rewriting the rules of rock. Perry transformed the soundscape of his time, turning the rock of the 70s into a gritty laboratory of riffs that were at once dirty, visceral, and deeply rooted in the blues. Listen to Walk This Way, and you can feel his signature at work. Short, punchy notes, a groove that pulses and swings, guitar lines that almost feel percussive. For Perry, it was never about sheer speed or intricate technicality. It was about the feel, the swagger, the infectious bounce that made each riff impossible not to move to. His guitar didn't just sing, it strutted. Fast forward to the 1980s, and a new sheriff rode into town. Slash, with his debut on Appetite for Destruction, wasted no time in announcing his arrival. Sweet Child O' Mine alone would have secured his legacy. A melody so memorable that it instantly lodges itself in the mind, a sustain that seems to stretch into infinity, and a vibrato as wide as the Sunset Strip. If Joe Perry's riffs were graffiti, raw, unpredictable, and scrawled across the walls of rock history, Slash's solos are towering murals, sweeping and cinematic, painting entire worlds with a few well-placed notes. Where Perry pressed the attack with streetwise irregularity, Slash built grand, melodic arcs that soar and linger long after the final note has faded. But their influence extends beyond mere sound. It's attitude that truly separates the good from the legendary. Joe Perry was always the studio rebel, the restless spirit whose creative drive sometimes saw him vanish for hours, even days, in pursuit of the perfect riff. At the height of his partnership with Steven Tyler, he would slip away to lay down entire tracks alone, chasing a vision that only he could hear. Slash, in contrast, emerged from the wilds of Los Angeles, already a myth in the making. With a hat pilfered from a shop, a cigarette perpetually dangling from his lips, and the unshakable conviction that the stage was his true home, Slash embodied the rock and roll outlaw, even before he played a note. What's perhaps most fascinating is the lineage of influence that connects them. Slash has never been shy about citing Aerosmith, and Joe Perry in particular, as a direct inspiration. In many ways, Perry laid down the very road that Slash would later tear down at breakneck speed. The raw heft of Toys in the Attic and the swaggering menace of Back in the Saddle can both be heard as the seeds from which the ferocity of Welcome to the Jungle would later blossom. It's a thread that links not just two artists, but two eras, two approaches, two philosophies of what the guitar can and should do within a rock band. Yet their differences are just as compelling. Perry embraced imperfection, wearing it as a badge of honor and a stylistic choice. His playing, as heard in songs like Last Child, thrives on unpredictability, on the artful use of space and silence, on the feeling that at any moment the whole thing could come gloriously unhinged. Slash, on the other hand, has always sought to refine chaos into something almost orchestral. Compare Perry's jagged riffing with the ascending, almost symphonic solo in November Rain, and you witness two completely different philosophies at work. One revels in the unexpected, The other guides the listener through a carefully constructed emotional crescendo. Even their visual identities tell stories. Perry, with his road-worn leather and ever-expanding arsenal of guitars, looks every bit the traveler who's been everywhere and seen it all. He wears the marks of the journey like trophies. Slash, meanwhile, has become an instant icon, his face often obscured by a curtain of hair, his top hat instantly recognizable even in silhouette. His image has been immortalized in tattoos, murals, and the dreams of aspiring guitarists the world over. Musically, their common ground lies in the blues. The roots of both players reach deep into that ancient, emotive soil. Listen to Perry tear through "Stop Messin' Around," and then to Slash's soaring improvisations in live renditions of "Knockin' on Heaven's Door." The dialect is the same, but the accents differ. Perry speaks in the slang and swagger of the street, while Slash delivers grand, impassioned orations. Both are fluent, both are authentic, and both pay homage to the tradition while pushing it into new territory. On stage, their roles within their respective bands further set them apart. Perry is the quintessential team player, crafting guitar lines that leave space for Steven Tyler's vocals, for the band to lock in as a tight, unstoppable machine. Slash, in contrast, often commands so much presence that Guns N' Roses seems to revolve around him, his solos and stage moves drawing the eye and the ear alike. It's the difference between the architect of grooves and the charismatic virtuoso who steals the spotlight. Rebellion, too, is part of their DNA, not just against the world, but within their own bands. Perry famously left Aerosmith at the end of the 1970s, driven by creative differences, only to return and help shape the band's more pop-leaning resurgence in the 80s, as heard in hits like "Dude Looks Like a Lady." Slash, meanwhile, parted ways with Guns N' Roses in the 90s after epic clashes with Axl Rose, returning decades later with the aura of a living legend and a story that had only grown in the telling. Both men have stepped outside their main bands to explore new territory. Perry with his Joe Perry project, and later as part of the Hollywood Vampires alongside Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp, proving himself a versatile collaborator. Slash, meanwhile, built Slash's Snake Pit, joined Velvet Revolver, and established a fruitful partnership with Miles Kennedy, each project revealing new facets of his playing and songwriting. When it comes to their impact on the collective imagination of music fans, the scales remain in constant motion. Joe Perry invented the language. Slash turned it into a myth known worldwide. The riff from "Walk This Way" is foundational, a piece of history, while the solo from "Sweet Child O' Mine" has become a rite of passage for guitarists, a ringtone, a stadium anthem. Yet neither is defined by technical prowess alone. Perry carries the restless, erratic spirit of a bluesman. Slash brings the grandeur and theatricality of arena rock. This, perhaps, is what keeps the comparison so compelling. Two sides of the same coin, each reflecting different truths about what it means to play guitar in a rock band. In the end, there is no clear winner. There is only a conversation, a dialogue carried out in riffs, solos, and shared inspiration. When you revisit the haunting strains of "Dream On," and then lose yourself in the epic sweep of "Estranged," you realize that both have played not just the strings of their guitars, but the heartstrings of entire generations. And that, perhaps, is the truest duel. Which of these voices echoes most deeply within you? So here's the invitation. Go back, listen again. Compare the riffs and solos, trace the paths where Perry blazed the trail and where Slash built his cathedrals of sound. Then ask yourself, within your own fan's heart, who wins this battle of giants? Now it's your turn. Share your favorite comparisons between the riffs and solos of Joe Perry and Slash. Which song by each do you feel compelled to revisit right now, just to experience that electrifying clash of generations? Join the conversation and help us build the ultimate playlist for this legendary duel.